So Bob, looking at Baylor, just give us your thoughts. The first time you've seen them this year, so what are you looking at them?
Oh well, they're terrific offensively, and I think they play really hard, and I think defensively, I think their bigs have really helped them. Vital's been, he's been solid for them for what is this now? I think it's his 8th year. Uh, but yeah, I mean they're veteran. They don't get rattled. They play at a great pace, um, and they're terrific at playing in space.
Charles Montgomery.
Going off that, Coach Huggins, it's when you look at their starting five, they had that great starting five, and then you go to their bench and you have a player like Adam Flagler who comes off the bench and gives them solid minutes. How do you prepare? And Fran Fraschilla said they have 8 starters. How do you prepare for a team like that has that kind of depth and ability to go to its bench?
Well, they're going to play against one. We've got at least 8 too. So, when you bring a Taz Sherman off the bench, when you bring Gabe off the bench, I mean, we bring Jordan off the bench or Deuce, whichever. I mean, they got the same problem we got.
Justin Jackson.
Coach, the one thing that stands out to me with Baylor is their 3-point shooting, and obviously it's more than just 1 or 2 guys for them. I think they average like 10 threes a game, but obviously, they didn't shoot the ball that well against Kansas. Of course, they're just coming back from a long break and everything. But, have you ever scouted a team that shot the 3 ball like Baylor does, and how much of a weapon is that to try to defend?
Justin, I'd have to think a while to answer that question correctly. I mean, it's a great weapon, and they're going to bring a 4-man in who shoots it as well as the guards do. So yeah, I mean, but we've got to guard them. I think we're well aware of that. We got to pick them up a little earlier, and we got to do a really good job on ball screens. They're great at playing in space. I mean, they do a great job of spacing the floor, and they're very effective in space.
John Antoniuk.
You went through this in January, what they're going through now, coming off of a long break with COVID. And I heard somewhere, he said it takes about 3 games to really get back to where you were. Is that, you buy that? And what are some of the things that concern you when you come off COVID?
What does that mean? That you don't play as well for 3 games, and in the 4th game you play really well?
No, actually, they say you hit your stride about the 3rd game, which would be their 3rd game, this one.
I should have known it'd work out that way for us. No, John, our situation totally different than theirs. They were what, 20 days or something like that, close to 20 days. We were 7 or 8, somewhere in there. I think it was 7 or 8. And really,
Yeah.
the biggest thing that happened to us was we had a guy who had lost about 20 pounds, and he wasn't the same. Hey, now he's gained that back now, and he's playing really well again now. But I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that hit us. I can't imagine what they went through with 20 days. I know our guys that went absolutely crazy. They'd have went absolutely nuts. They'd been trying to sneak in the practice facility, or they'd go out on a playground and shoot. It would drive them insane to 20 days and not touch the ball.
You've talked a lot about game conditioning, and there is a big component to that, isn't there? Being in game shape, having your game legs, getting that back, keeping that.
Well, you can't go out and run on a track and get ready for a season. I mean, that we used to do that back in the old days. And I didn't like it much then. I like it worse now. But no, there's so much stopping and starting and running and sliding, and it's different muscles. It's you use daggone near all your muscles. So yeah, I mean, you can run on a treadmill. You want to run on a treadmill now. Cardiovascular wise, does it help you? Sure, but it doesn't in any way mirror what happens running up and down the floor.
You didn't like all that Marine training Jody did with you guys?
No, I mean, the only reason I liked it was because those other guys hated it so much, and I was hoping I'd get an advantage, But I mean, those other guys hated. Could you see Bake out there running on the track?
Nah. Maurice, nah.
No. Mo could run though. Mo could run.
Kevin Kinder.
Coach, going back to the matchups and up and down the lineup a little bit, when you're substituting, how much of it is trying to match what they do for defensive purposes or to take advantage of something, that you think you can offensively versus, concentrating more on your combinations and what's worked best for you?
Our substitutions really are more to get fresh legs in the game, more than anything else. I mean, there are times I think when somebody will change lineups and we think we have a better matchup if we put, whomever so-and-so in. But the majority of substitutions for us is to keep fresh legs on the floor.
Mike Casazza.
Morning, Bob. How are you?
Good, Mike.
I just got two for you. One, just how Deuce and I guess even Taz are doing with their lower halves, and then you mentioned their guard shooting and their bigs defensively for Baylor, but their backcourt is very good defensively. That seems to me, just watching your offense against their defense in the backcourt, seems like a pretty good matchup at this time of the year.
Yeah, I think it is. I went back and watched our game last year, and it was a great game. And it was great matchups, and I would assume that it'll be the same this time around. I mean, there's a lot, and justifiably so, said about their guards, but our guard's pretty good too.
And then how are Deuce and Taz doing?
How are they doing? Yeah, they're doing fine. They're doing fine. I mean, we didn't do much yesterday in terms of running up and down and playing. We got some shots, and we looked at a lot of film and tried to have them understand philosophically what we were trying to do. But I mean, you can't put it all into 2 days and play that game, and then you're so tired after that game you can't play the next two.
Back to John.
Watching the Kansas game, what did Kansas do to beat Baylor, in your opinion? And did that in any way mirror how you guys beat them last year?
Well, I think the big thing that Kansas has that most people don't have. I think there's a few other guys in our league, but McCormick is really good, and McCormick kind of takes away any drive to the basket. So if you want to put pressure on the rim and kind of draw help and get people open that way, it's tough with him because they just kind of, you can leave him on an island and he's fine, and then there's not a lot of guys in our league that are that way. He's not what Sags was, but that's what we did with Sags. We just push him to Sags, and that's what they're doing. They're pushing everything to McCormick, and when you have a guy like that back there, you can crowd the guy a little more. you're not worried about getting beat off the bounce because you've got a guy back there who can erase all the mistakes.
Derek's not quite like that.
Derek couldn't jump over the target.
One other thing here with Vital, you know, he's such a unique and different type of player. He's almost like a defensive end or a linebacker who can handle. He's so big and so thick. What makes him so difficult?
Well, I think he's got a great understanding how to play. I think too he's a very good passer. He's a very, very good passer. He keeps balls alive. He's not selfish. You know, he'll keep balls alive, get it back to the guys who can make shots. He's a lot like the guy we got, really.
Yeah. You like those guys. I mean, from your days going all the way back, you like to have guys like that on your team, don't you? I know you talked about when you got started at Akron, you wanted football players, that kind of thing, or at least worked out that way that you had them.
I want to get guys that like to win, and I think that's what Vital is. He wants to win. I mean, I heard the story. I don't know. I heard it just like everybody else did from TV that his high school coach called Scott and told Scott, "Hey, I got this guy that now he's not going to score for you, but he's going to do everything else." And Scott took him, and it was a great take on Scott's part.
Back to Greg.
Bob, you've talked about this in past years, but when you get to this point in the season, how much do you tell kids about where they are in terms of conference, standings, NCAA seedings? How open are you with them about that?
We've got a big blackboard in the film room, and they do it. We've got guys on our team that know where we are and what has to happen and who's coming next, and so much so that they have their net ranking up there. But that's our players. That's not the coaching staff. I think last year hit them really hard. The idea that it could be taken away from you in a matter of seconds. I mean, we're all sitting there getting ready to go to shoot around, and all of a sudden, Shane comes down and said, "Hey, it's over. No more basketball till next year." I mean, that hits you hard, man.
Back to Justin.
Hey, Coach, on Jared Butler for Baylor. He's kind of scoring about what he did last year, but his assists are up, his shooting percentages are up. I'm guessing a lot of people will kind of think he might be the player of the year in the Big 12. Just kind of wondering what you see in him. Has he changed his game at all this year at all?
Well, first of all, I'm not ready to give him a player of the year. I think the guy that we have that's averaging a double and has dominated the league, I think is got a pretty good shot as well.
Sure.
But no, I mean he's better. He's more mature. I think it's kind of amazing when you can put four guys on the floor like they do at times. That you put four guys on the floor, they're that unselfish. They kind of look out for each other, and he's the captain of that. I think when your best player has those attributes, it tends to trickle down to the rest of your team.
There's no further questions. John, you will be last.
All right. One on JB. You've been really complimentary of some of the things that he does beyond what we normally see, shooting, things like that, like getting his hands on the ball and being active. Is that unusual for a player that young to be doing some of those things this early in his career, particularly in this day and age?
Well, I think JB's blessed. He's blessed that his dad Corey was a good player in his own right. Studies basketball and spent an enormous amount of time working with JB. So JB you know, I mean, I look at it kind of like what happened with me, you know.
With your dad?
I couldn't screw anything up, you know. Well, I did screw things up, but I couldn't do it without getting caught.
Yeah.
And I think, and you know, and Corey has spent an enormous amount of time, just he and JB in the gym, you know, and smart enough to know when maybe let's bring somebody else in because he's tired of hearing the same voice, you know. My dad wouldn't do that because he's afraid he might have to pay somebody or something, you know. As long as money wasn't involved, he might have done it. But Corey has been absolutely phenomenal. And I said this to Fran Frischella, you know, Corey and I were talking. JB came down here for a visit. We're just it was either the first day of school or we were going to start school the next day. And I said to Corey, I said, you know, I understand what you're doing, you know, with going to the prep school and all that. And I think that's great. And I think it's great that you know, you're going to get him another year, but wouldn't it be better to come here, play against the guys we have every day, go in a weight room with Sean Brown? You know, a lot of those prep schools don't even have weight rooms, and have a guy who's trained pros, you know, multiple times. Wouldn't that be a better situation for him? And Corey said, well, you know, that's something to think about. And they called me the next morning and said, you know, can we get in school?
I remember something Jamie Dixon said about your team, particularly as it related to Nate Adrian. It just was when he was on the floor, you were just better. You were just a better team. Does JB have those type of attributes where you're just a better team when he's on the floor?
Absolutely. But I think as time goes on, he'll be even better and better and better at it, like Nate got. I mean, Nate was, without a question, you know, he was the voice, but he wasn't that way as a freshman or a sophomore.
He's a little head then. JB's a little head of that.
Yeah, he is.
Mm.
Yeah, he is.
Thanks.
But you have to understand the personalities Nate was dealing with too, though. You know.
Yeah.
And Justin, you'll have the final question.
Coach, I was going to kind of try to hold off on this, but obviously you're closing in on 900 wins. Roy got his the other day, and more than 900. Two more after that, you'd be up there with Bob Knight, and obviously, I know that's probably a guy you respect very well, and have coached against him. I think 3 times. I think. Just kind of wondering, you know, I know the win totals. You try not to pay attention and that kind of stuff, but I mean, these are numbers that, you know, many great coaches, you know, haven't gotten this far. Just kind of wonder what your thoughts are here.
Honestly, Justin, I don't think about it. I don't really pay any attention. I mean, it's hard. You turn on TV and, you know, Roy's going for his 900th. Well, Roy and I are friends. I'm happy for Roy. I have the utmost respect for Coach Knight, and when we coached against each other more than 3 times. But
is it more than 3? Okay.
Yeah, but you know, and Coach Knight grew up right up the road from where I was in Ohio. So I, you know, Coach Knight was a legend, you know, and I admire those guys, and I appreciate those guys. I appreciate what those guys did for guys like me who came after them. And I would hope that that people would not look at guys like Roy and I not in that light, because those guys to me are icons. That they're the Jerry West of coaches is what they are. But hopefully that they learn some things from us, and could take some of, you know, what we've done over the course of 35, 40 years, and continue to make this game the greatest game, you know, that there is. That's to me, that's what's important. I'm not all caught up on that other stuff.
Right.
I never have been.
Did Coach Knight ever give you any good advice or any?
Oh, Coach Knight gave me a lot of advice.
Yeah.
A
Anything?
lot of advice. Particularly towards the end. Particularly towards, you know, towards the end when he was coaching, he gave me a lot of advice. It was one of those, hey, come over here, sit down, I need to talk to you, you know, and it wasn't like, yes, sir. But I've been blessed, man. I've been blessed. I spent a lot of time around Al McGuire. I
Yeah.
spent a lot. Charlie Spoonhour was fantastic for me because he kind of took the edge off, you know. But I mean, I've been blessed, man. I've spent a lot of time with Mike Krzyzewski. I've spent time with the greatest coaches, you know. I was in Hawaii. We were playing. I get a call from the front desk. It said, "There's a guy down here who wants to talk to you." I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Pete Newell." I said, "I'll be right there." You know, and I've been blessed, man. I've been blessed to have the greatest minds in basketball, and I've been able to spend time with them. Yeah, you know, I was with Coach Iba. I'll tell you a real funny Coach Iba story real quick.
Sure.
So I go to Larry Gibson, very, very dear friend of mine, worked my dad's camp forever. And Larry was a junior college coach out in, I don't even know where in the heck he was, somewhere in Oklahoma. And he called me and he said, what are you doing on whatever, Wednesday? And I said, well, I got, you know, and he goes, well, tell him you can't do it. Coach Iva's coming in. Coach Iva wanted to know if you were going to be there. I told him I would call you. And so long story short, I fly out to Miami, Oklahoma, introduces me to Coach Iba. I'm sitting talking to Coach Iba. The minute the practice started, Coach Iba turned his back to me and started watching practice. He had note cards in his pocket. He was making notes the whole practice. As soon as practice was over with, I mean, the minute practice over, he turned around and got right in the same conversation he was in like 2.5 hours before. And we went to lunch. And this I mean, to this day, I get tickled by it. So we're sitting there and the girl comes around, you know, what would y'all like to drink? And, you know, and Larry said, sweet tea. And his assistant said sweet tea. I said unsweet tea. And Coach Alba said, he said, I want some bourbon, and I don't want one of them there newspaper drinks. And she said, excuse me? He said, I don't want one of them there newspaper drinks. And she kind of mumbled something and went back. She came back and gave us the tea and gave Coach the glass, and he looked at it and he said, honey, I told you I didn't want one of them there newspaper drinks. And she said, sir, I don't know what that is. He said, if I can hold I had a newspaper. He said, if I can hold a newspaper up and see through this drink, you ain't put enough bourbon in it. You know, and I tell you what, I laughed and you know, I've been blessed, I guess is what I'm trying to tell you, man. Very, very few people my age got to spend time with those kind of guys, you know, and I treasure it.
If I could ask you one, I'm sorry. If I could ask you one more with Coach Knight, obviously, I mean, you guys, philosophies, especially defensively, are pretty similar. You know, both of you guys were fired up guys on the sidelines, you know, that kind of thing. Were you ever worried about, you know, comparisons to Coach Knight or, you know, anything like that at all? Or
how could anybody be compared to Coach Knight?
yeah,
You know, I'm blessed. I mean, that's the best thing, you know, that I can say to you is I'm blessed. I've been blessed to be around you know, the greats. I was when we were the pandemic thing, and I went to my cabin, and I got Al McGuire's book and started reading Al McGuire's book because I couldn't sleep. And I'm reading Al's book, and I'm sitting there like chuckling to myself, you know, 2:30 in the morning about something that he had in a book that he said to me. You know, and what a, you know, I can't. I mean, I've been around the best coaches in the history of Ohio. I've been around the great coaches in the history of basketball. So,
Hey, Hugs, I can't believe you didn't mention Tark and dividing up the pie.
I spent a lot of time with Tark. I spent a ton of time with Tark. You know, the greatest thing that happened to me, guys, was getting the Nike deal and getting on the circuit where we did the clinics. And you know, I'd be the first one there, man. I was like the dog sitting at the front row, sitting at the door wanting to get in. And I'd go in there and I didn't say anything. I just sit there, and I'm there with Louis Carnesecca, Lute Olson, Tark. I mean, you name it. They're everybody that you could think of. They're there, and sit there and listen to them talk and tell stories. And I mean, what a great deal. And I'm blessed. I mean, I was in my 20s. You know, how many guys my age are able to walk into a room like that with those kind of legends in there? And I just go sit in the corner and mind my own business. But I could tell you stories, some of the stuff that, you know, the stories that those guys told that were funnier, and I'll get out. I mean, Valvano, you know, I spent a lot of time with Jimmy V. A lot of time. You know, it's blessed. That's the only way I can put it. I've been blessed.
I would say that time was probably evening time with Valvano, right?
We had some nights, yeah. Yeah.
Justin.
Hey, you know, kind of going off that, Coach, are there young coaches out there now, any that come to mind that, you know, 20 years from now will one day be saying, you know, hey, when I was in my 30s, I was in the room with Coach Huggins, and he, you know, I was blessed to be around him. Is there any young guys in the business now that maybe you seek out or catches your eye, so to speak, I guess?
You know, Justin, it's sad, but I mean, the time that, you know, we're all together has diminished so much. You know, at the Final Four, yeah, around a lot of young coaches, enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, our business has become, you know, it used to be all ball. It's not all ball now. You know, we got so many other things going on. I mean, how am I going to meet aspiring young coaches when I'm doing the MAC events? You know, it's just a different time. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm blessed to grow up in the right time, the right era. And because I was the way I was, you know, everybody thought I was a little crazy and too high strung and all that. And to a degree, a lot of those guys they seek me out, you know, to like try to get inside my head a little bit, which I mean, I feel blessed for.
Anything else for Coach? Coach, appreciate your time. Thanks everyone for calling in.
All right, guys.